All right, well, hello to both of my fans. This is Key of W here, and I have with me a special guest. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey guys, I'm Empfindsamer. I'm here joining Key of W. We're gonna take a look at this phenomenal game from our
Yeah,
childhood. I must say, I've forgotten how rock and roll this intro was.
yeah. I was gonna wait to introduce, and I was thinking, like, no, we have to hear the "oh yeah" first. That has to be in the clear. Uh,
Oh yeah,
with the music. So this is the game Saints of Virtue. If you've never heard of this game before, you are not alone in that. This is a very obscure game. Basically, a passion project made just by two guys. If you can't quite tell from the iconography, this is in fact a Christian game, but it is not like a mainstream Christian game that you might see from like typical Christian media sources. So it's out there. Both of us had this game as kids, so we remember it with some fondness, I guess. But we're gonna go
yeah,
through this
yeah,
game. Yeah. Um,
and for sure, like you said, it was definitely obscure. Even growing up as we did in our kind of Christian uh, friend group and our household, I think we're the only people I have ever spoken to who ever played this game or knew
yeah.
this game existed. I know nobody else who's ever
Yeah,
seen it.
exactly. I
Or
just remember getting it as a Christmas present from the Lee family, and it was like, "Hey, we got this game for you. We'd never heard of it." It's like, okay, and then we played it, and it didn't work super well, and it never really worked super well. There's some I'll get into it later because there's some really interesting bugs that are actually fixed now. So what I'm playing, there's a patch called the Saints X patch that a superfan made. Thank you to the superfan here. I'm going to put it in the description. So if you're looking at this game and going, "Wow, I would love to play this late '90s trippy liminal space vaporware sort of game," and you have the program itself, but you can't get it to run properly because it doesn't work with modern machines, there's a patch that makes it work. That's the patch I am using. There is one thing the patch doesn't work with, and that is the intro video down here. So we're not going to watch this right this minute. If this video at any point cuts to the actual intro of the game, what I've done is we've watched that separately and then spliced the video in. Because if I try to watch the intro video, what's going to happen is the game's going to
yeah,
crash. So we
yeah,
won't do
not
that.
to ruin the illusion, but yeah, there may be some editing involved. Uh,
Yeah, I do like that game.
but yeah,
So, gosh, hold on. I need to turn the music off. I think it is off. I think if I press, it's going to turn on. Yeah. So yeah, turn it off. I want the music off. I'll get into this more in a little bit. I don't want to go too long before we start playing the game. But the music is kind of wonky. And I don't know how much of it is the engine and how much of it is the developers. But it doesn't sound great. It will drive me nuts. So I'm going to have this music list. If you are hearing music in the game, then I have added stuff in post because I didn't like the silence. So we'll see what that's like. But the two of us are going to play basically in silence, just with sound effects. And for some reason, sometimes the music turns itself back on, so I might go back in and keep turning it off as we play the game. It's great. There's no bugs. Perfect game. 10 out of 10.
will not be subverted. You will listen to the soundtrack and you
You
will
will.
enjoy it.
I'll actually link the original soundtrack as well because whether or not I put in music after the fact, it will not be the you will not be hearing the original game's audio. But if you're like, I'm curious to see, like, why would they not listen to the music while I play the game? Well, my friends, check it out. I will put a link. Someone has actually posted all of the audio assets to YouTube. I also have them myself, so if for any reason those videos go down, I can just upload them myself. Um, but I think that's enough discussion. I think it's best for you to just see with fresh eyes what this game is. So we're going to start a new game here. I'm going to pick the easy difficulty. It is not because the game is particularly hard. Um, there's really not like additional enemies on the harder modes, as far as I can tell. It's just that it takes more shots to kill the enemies, and they hurt you a little bit more each time. And so I picked the easier difficulties because it ends up being a little bit of a slog in a couple areas when it takes forever to kill them. So we're gonna do it on easy
Yeah,
mode. It's basically the same thing. Everything functions exactly the same. Okay,
yeah.
here we go. Fingers crossed, no bugs.
I guess the one thing I'll say while we're loading in here is you've been kind of taking a look at the game, playing it. I have not really seen this since I last played it as a kid, so I'm coming at it pretty fresh.
Yeah, mouse wasn't
Um,
connected to the game there. Yes.
Though it is it is amazing how even just instantly I'm transported back to my
Yeah.
memories just seeing this screen.
Yeah, so hopefully that's enough time to read the text at the top there. So the Amphitheater of Apathy, that is our first level. So we're in this theater. And I'm going to double check here that we in fact have. Yep, music turned itself back on. So yeah, the Amphitheater of Apathy. This being a Christian game, each level is kind of based on some sort of worldview that we're meant to be combating. And so Apathy, that's the interesting choice here. Check out this wonderful 3D environment.
I will say I actually kind of like this opening. It does kind of unceremoniously drop you just in the middle, but I kind of like the imagery of you being in this theater here.
Honestly, favorite level in the game of the four. Only 4 levels, but they're pretty big. I think level 1's the best one. I think it's the best level in the game. I'm gonna grab.
Yeah, I don't really remember beyond the first level, so
yeah. I'm also enjoying. So a nice thing with the patch is, see, I can move my mouse around like a modern game. I'm using WASD to move. The original game controls weren't quite that good, and you couldn't modify them. And so the game was harder because like you could barely like duck and dodge anything. But the game was not designed with the ability to do this freely. There is the ability in the original game to look up and down, but there's special keys for it. And so like this texture here on this ramp doesn't really work very well if I start having an extreme view. It starts to like move around a bit. It's really funny.
I was gonna say, wasn't the controls like it's not even like it's not very natural to look up and down. You have to hit like page up, page down or something. So it's like very separated from your normal movement controls. So you probably wouldn't even do it very often. You would just kind of run around.
So yeah, most of the time you won't notice how the perspective is really wonky when you're looking up and down. But anyway, we're dropped in. This is like a hub and spoke design, kind of. It's actually more linear than you think. We got 5 entrances here. So I'm going to look at the ones we can't go in, just so you have a frame of mind for what's going on. So on the far left over here, this is a door we just can't open. I'm going to try not to whip my mouse around too much. This is very, very disorienting.
Yeah. I feel like just the graphics and even kind of the layout and everything, I really feel like this just really throws me back into like the days of when you would open a cereal box and you would get a computer game in it. Like the one I'm obviously thinking of is the Chex Quest one, but like just kind of that whole like Wild West of 3D games.
Yeah, we also have this door over here. Yeah, back in the 90s when, in the 90s when every 3D game was basically Doom. So I'm just going to show this area here real quick just so you can see something, because we won't cover this probably later, of the Pits of Despair. I remember getting stuck here. We thought this game was unplayable because we couldn't get across and hit that lever. Perhaps there's another way. You look up, you see there's something above that platform. We can't actually jump up there, but when we first played the game, there's this issue with the game where the frame rate is, or where the physics are dependent on the frame rate. So even by the time we got the game, which was shortly after its release, the computer was too fast. So what happens is you jump higher. So we just jumped across, and we thought that was what you're supposed to do to get across.
Honestly, I love that there was a time, and I'm sure similar things have happened since, but like where important game aspects are tied to the frame rate or tied to technology limitations that we figure will never change. And then as soon as computers get too good for the game, like what was the classic one? Like Tetris, was it, where the game gets harder because things speed up?
Yeah.
Not Tetris, Galaga, right? Galaga or
Space Invaders was the original one.
That's the one I'm thinking of. Yeah, where like literally it speeds up because there's less to calculate and stuff like that. Let's talk about these masks. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, so this first one here is named Vanity, and the only way you can really know is at the beginning of each level, it tells you what enemies you're facing, but doesn't tell you which is which, because there's really only 2 in this level. So when you defeat them, the red text at the top just has the character say outright what they are. I'm not gonna.
I want to say, I don't know if you found it. I vaguely recall like the box art for this game, and I feel like the box art or the manual or something had a bunch of info on the enemies you would be facing, and I don't know if that's something you can find online, but I seem to remember it being pretty pretty interesting.
I remember it talking about 4 of the enemies, but there are 6 total in the game. So we're gonna pick up this rock because we will need it.
6 whole enemies. That's like back in the day. But basically, the idea, right, is these enemies are like vices or like sins or something that you're
Yeah.
fighting.
Yeah, the game, like, I don't think you play as yourself. Like, you really are whoever the kid is in the intro of the game is basically just some, average suburban white teenage Christian boy. And this is essentially like delving into their own psyche.
Yeah.
And all this is like representative of like sort of the trials and tribulations of trying to live as a Christian, which is apparently like the hardest thing to do if you're a suburban white teenage boy. But
Well, that character in that theme really spoke to me at the time, so
yeah,
I can relate.
yeah,
um, but the whole concept of this game, right, is basically you're just kind of like taking a little internal metaphorical journey through your, I don't know, your soul, I guess,
yeah,
and fighting off the sins with the Word of God or something like that.
yeah.
Like we picked up a little scroll earlier, and I think that scroll is like, what, isn't it like a Bible verse or something like that?
Yeah, I'm actually gonna get one right here. So let's pull this open. So the scroll menu, so you can see. So the one I grabbed in the amphitheater is this and then they put Jesus in there because it would be so funny if it was just talking about me. By the way, I, Key of W,
I'm the
I am the
vine.
vine. You are the branches. This is like the only time they put this in the verse to be like, hey, by the way, you're the
And
branch
it
of
doesn't look
man.
like
Yeah.
doesn't look like the red letter edition that
Yeah.
I remember.
So it's that, and you can't go back to it every time it closes. And then the one we just picked up is this one for Since Creation of the World. So we take these verses; they're fine. Both of the scrolls you picked up are required to beat the game. There are always more scrolls in the level than you need, but their placement is preset. So if you know already how to beat the game, there's several places you can just skip. But I'm going to grab everything because it's fun to do that. But yeah, the idea is that there's like the worldly wisdom, so the words of the world that you have to combat with scripture, and so that's what these scrolls are for. The success of the arguments is I'll leave that one open for further discussion when we see it.
Kind of takes me back though, like to the whole mentality of like the sort of apologetics mindset. I just remember being a kid, I don't know, middle school, and a lot of focus on like making sure you had the arguments equipped to be able to combat, wisdom of the world. So the whole message of this game really kind of lined up with this sort of, I guess, teaching we would be getting from our youth group or our, Sunday school or whatever.
Well, sure. Yeah, it's very much that sort of thing about, if you want to fight against temptation, instead of like just trying really hard to not do the thing, you remind yourself of what scripture says. It's that's what the game is gonna sort of push on us here. I say push on us like it's negative. It's honestly it's fine, but chapter to chapter, level to level, we'll see like how successful it is. Like I personally think that this level is not super great with how it handles the scrolls. Whereas other later levels are better at it. We'll see that in a moment.
Yeah. Oh, I remember this.
Yeah. I love this room. So if y'all missed it on the way in, this is the Caves of Loneliness. So of course every level is some symbolic thing. I think the only thing I pick up is the ammo right now. And this room is just a ticking thing. We can't hear the ticking because apparently that's tied to the music and not the sound effects. It's very weird what this game does. So if you hear ticking, I added that in post.
What is that, a bottomless pit under there? Or?
Actually, this thing, you can get some stuff. It has some things. TikTok goes, when will it ever stop? Nobody knows. On the website for the I don't know if the website's still active, but the game devs put up a website for the game, and they have their sort of like frequently asked questions and hints. And one of the things talks about that room, and they're just like, nope, it doesn't. It's just symbolic. It's just meant to feel the time go by in loneliness. And it's like, that kind of rocks, honestly.
And what's funny about that is I'm sure that as kids we just spent a lot of time in that room trying to figure out what it was and how to do something with it. So in a way, it kind of they kind of played us.
Yeah. I like it though, like how this level has a lot of areas that sort of drive home the messaging of the level, right?
Like, yeah, because like you're just wandering through this cave and it's kind of maze-like, and you feel like you're in the same place you've been before.
Yeah,
and I think that kind of goes with the whole theme of loneliness, right?
And that they basically use one texture for everything. So yeah, it can make it hard to tell where you are because the level design is not super high in variety, but they throw in these moments that I think really sell the idea really really well. And here's a
Yeah.
very very obvious secret. So I,
Oh,
yeah, I found that first secret earlier. There's a button I can press to look at that here. So the current stats. Secret areas found 2. I'm just going to say up front, there are 6 in this first level. I know where they all are. I've seen a map of the entire level. I know where everything is. However, 2 of the secrets don't fire, I guess, when you get them. So you can only collect 4 unless they've done some weird thing because there's 2 secrets we're going to find that don't actually increase your secret counter. Oops.
love that.
Yeah, it could be that it's somewhere else, but like the map that you can find online, you can find all the maps for the game online, marks the
Yeah.
6 secrets, and only 4 of them actually trigger.
Something wrong with the
Yeah,
trigger, probably. Yeah.
yeah. I always try to remind myself this is 2 guys who, up to this point, had no video game development experience. So, uh, you get a product that's made by guys who don't have video game experience yet. There's some
Yeah, and again, this
choices.
is what
Yeah,
late '90s too, so it wasn't like you're working it on Unreal Engine or anything. You're kind
yeah.
of
They used I forget the name of the engine, but this game is sometimes thought of as a Doom clone, but they didn't use the Doom engine. They used an engine that probably was derived from the Doom engine later. Um, okay, I've pretty quickly gotten myself lost. It's easy to do.
gonna say. I know I was talking about feeling like you've been here before, but
Yeah,
I know for a fact we've been through these halls already. So.
yeah. I've been this way, and then oh, hold on, I haven't gone in here or in here. That's just ammo. I haven't gone in here yet. I'm trying very hard not to open up the map. Not because I'm like trying to prove anything, but opening the map, it's on the screen, it gets in the way. So I'll only open it if I'm gonna like stand still and look at something. But I watched a playthrough of this where someone had that map open the whole time, and it's really distracting to look at. Also, I fired at him and it didn't hit.
Yeah.
That's annoying.
Well, let me ask you this: is your strategy just to stand there and take every single shot from the
Yeah.
enemy?
So one of the interesting things about this is like, so they fire the fireballs at you, and I can sort of dodge out of the way, but like the hitbox is wonky. So unless you get like 8 miles clear of the fireball, you'll actually get hit. And also, your hitbox apparently extends about 100 feet in the air. So if they fire way above you, they'll still hit you. Anyway, so we have the first like scroll door or worldly wisdom door. This is a gap you're not supposed to be able to jump. I have actually made it across this gap before, but you're supposed to not be able to do it. So we're gonna go. I just want a moment of silence, everyone, for the greatest sound effect of all time.
Whoa! Anybody there?
All right, you may now resume.
It's that's the Wilhelm scream
It's,
in a 3D game here.
yeah, and there's a lot of platforming for some reason in this game, so you're gonna hear that a lot if you're not great at the platforming.
I forgot about this little like subworld that you drop into.
Yeah, it's great
Uh,
because just like the ticking clock thing, like it. I mean, you do have to go to this area, but it doesn't do anything aside from give atmosphere. It's so great.
yeah.
Of course, that atmosphere is a little bit dulled by the fact I can see there's clearly walls around this area, and it's actually quite small.
Oh yeah.
And the way that I know where to go is those power ups I picked up are pointing toward the exit, which is now I've lost it. I believe it's
Nice
this way.
work.
Oh, I don't think I see it.
Vaguely, might have been to the right a little bit. I think. Is it a
There it is.
door? Or
There
like
it
what we
is.
look?
I can see it on my
Uh,
screen. I know that the recording software is not going to pick it up as nicely as I see it here, but it's going to be rather pixelated. But yeah, it's just a hole in the ground that you have to find, and that's it.
nice.
Yeah.
And that just drops you back here.
And then we have a
Oh,
bridge. Yeah, it's just very
is
weird.
it? Is that the intention that you
Yeah.
fall down once and then
You fall
oh,
down once in the bridge. That's what you're supposed to do. Just very strange game. All right, here's the first.
I guess.
I can do it my way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we want to find the scroll. We happen to have the scroll that do this. I can do it my way, so we can look to see what they say. And this one here, we look at. The big thing here is like, apart from me, you can do nothing. It's like, oh, then this clearly is the counter
I
spell.
can do it my way.
I am the vine. You are the branches. If a man remains in me, and I in him, he will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing.
There we go.
You've
Yeah.
done it.
What's this?
I wonder what it
that
is.
I love it. It's just like, I see a button, just press it, see what happens.
Yeah, why not?
I remember when we were stuck on this when we first got the game and didn't know how to get past the pit of despair thing, that this was the only button we could find, and unless you have the most eagle eye sort of possible, you will not know what that button does on your first press. It just, there's no way to tell. But anyway, the only way back to the amphitheater is backtracking. We have finished the Caves of Loneliness. We want to open that door, press the button, and we wanted to grab the scroll in the dark area. There's nothing else to do here, and I've collected all of the other stuff we can see. So that's the first of 5 major areas in the Amphitheater of Apathy. So while I'm walking back, David, tell me what you think about the Caves of Loneliness.
Well, so this is one of the places I remember pretty well, just from, because again, it was the first place you visit, and not a particularly long level, but I do remember the atmosphere of it. Very simple, kind of just intros you to the game. I think that the main thing for me I remember is seeing those little masked enemies for the first time, and that's the whole thing with the enemies too. Is they're supposed to be like masks. I think the idea kind of behind it is like your masks that you might wear if you were not confident in who you are, or maybe they're just masks of like worldly wisdom that are. There's like some symbology behind that, or I guess symbolism.
Yeah.
You know, like a mask is hollow; it has no. It's just a visage that goes over the top, right? So there's some sort of interesting, like metaphor going on there.
Cool. I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Our character has mentioned that something has changed in here, and something has indeed changed, but unless you know exactly what you're looking for, you're not going to know, and it's totally fine. We're going to go to this level next. It's a long hallway, so you can finish your thought while we go down this hall.
Kind of most of the thought there is, I feel like this is a game that you really don't have to engage with any of the, message or the deeper symbolism if you don't want to, but it's clear to me that the creators were trying to go for some, some symbolism, some metaphor, some message about, spiritual things. And so we have a second enemy here, right?
Wilderness. So yeah, what do you think about the enemy design so far? Like, we've seen vanity, and now we're seeing some worldliness. We're going to see a couple more of them in a second here.
And so wait, we kind of just glossed over it, but we basically just walked into a mall.
Yeah. The Mall of Distractions.
Yeah.
Look at this distraction.
Interesting.
That was weird. I think it just glitched something else. Okay, how about this one? I don't think it's supposed to do that either. It is supposed to fall. That's what most
computers did.
Yeah.
Back in the 90s, most computers did that.
Yeah, it is supposed to fall apart when you touch it.
Interesting.
Yeah. So like,
what about this enemy design? Do you feel like a worldliness having a globe for a head, a little on the nose, or?
It feels like, they said we need an enemy design for worldliness, and the creators are like, how do we represent this?
How about the world?
Yeah, it feels like a little bit like a swing and a miss to me.
I mean, it seems fine to me, honestly. Like, I'm not looking for like, I don't know.
Most toys win.
So yeah, we don't have the scroll for this one, unfortunately. So this is where the door is in this level, but we have to come back. Spoiler alert, it's the last door will open. This is the only level we're going to return to, and we're going to do it multiple times. But yeah, the reason I say it's swing and a miss is that, like, generally the enemy designs are supposed to give us something negative that we're criticizing about this, whereas, like, the world itself is not the problem with worldliness. You know what I mean? Like, worldliness is not simply that. So it just kind of feels like we needed a symbol, and so we're just going to use the planet. But it's
Well, I feel like there's definitely an angle. This might be sort of more of a Protestant or evangelical thing, but like this concept of everything of the world, like being fallen and sinful, and in contrast, you're supposed to be thinking about heavenly things and spiritual things, and so the world is just kind of a representation of like, hey, everything here is temporal, and you shouldn't be focusing on this. You should be focusing on
Yeah.
eternal life.
That is definitely what they're going
Um,
for with this sort of thing. Because, like, yeah, it's the mall. You got all these material possessions, which, when you try to touch them, they turn into the Shield of Faith booster. That's actually not what it's supposed to. It's supposed to say you reach for it, but it crumbles and turns to dust.
that's interesting. It seems like something
Yeah.
might be not working properly. Maybe it has to do with the DOSBox emulation or something.
Yeah, it also has to do with there is a Shield of Faith booster that's nearby, and so I will. Okay, fine, I'll save the game. I'm gonna call it key. That's the key. Practice 1 is the one I was practicing with ahead of time. So yeah, when I touch this, it should just fall and turn to dust, but it's clipping like that. Okay, so I'm definitely looking for something on this level. There's other parts of the mall I haven't reached yet, but I'm looking, and I always get lost. Always get lost in this level.
I will say, like, the aesthetic of this level is great, but the layout is kind of just a bunch of halls.
Yeah, the reason that any part of this game is ever confusing to get through is they basically make maze-like layouts, but everything looks... there it is. Everything looks exactly the same. I love the character. I wonder what this key is for. Yeah, that's what everyone's thinking. I got a key. Maybe it's for a door. There is a door up here, but the key doesn't open it. I don't remember exactly where it is. It's not that important. I find it. But yeah, it's maze-like layouts. Everything looks the same. Oh. And we actually...
I remember this level really well. I remember, like, running around in it for ages. I think because we didn't know what we were supposed to do next, and we figured we missed something.
Yeah, because if you don't know how to get into Pits of Despair, then you're essentially stuck in the caves of loneliness in this mall because you can't find the scroll to open the door in the mall. Gosh, just the fire rate on this is so slow.
Yeah.
You can't open the door in the mall until you've gone to another area, and you can't get... Well, the way we're going to get to the other area is actually using the rocks. Okay, here's the door we're going to open.
Well, there's something almost kind of probably unintentionally poignant about the idea of running around endlessly in this mall of distractions instead of looking for the thing you're supposed to be looking for. But I don't think it was a design choice. I think it was just we were lost.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of design choices in this, although some of it is like clearly they have one texture they're using here. So, well, actually, there's a second one. But yeah, I think there's a mix of some like really great like intentional choices and even great unintentional choices that really drive home like the point of the game. And then there's some stuff like, why does it have to be this difficult to figure out where you're going? Can you find a second texture? Things like that. But like, I don't really fault them too much for that because again, if it's just two guys making a game with essentially just their parents helping to make the game by funding their development, they're doing their best. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who's dabbled in trying to make either games or creative things, it's really easy to have an idea, start working on it, and then be like, oh, this is hard, and give up.
How do you like the skybox?
Oh, it's great.
What's great is if you jump, you can see that it is literally just a strip. Yeah.
Nice.
I don't think they really thought that one. Anyway, yeah, you were saying, I totally interrupted your thought process.
Well, yeah, I was just saying, the fact that a couple of the guys, just kind of with a passion project, were able to make this and complete it, I think,
Yeah.
It's something you can't laugh at them for. It was definitely a lot of work, and I'm sure they were figuring stuff out for the first time as they were making it.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, what we did in there was we grabbed the scroll that was in that, I guess, shop, because we need that scroll in the Pits of Despair. We can get into the pits without coming here, but we would have to then do a bunch of backtracking, so the method I've chosen, the only backtracking we'll do is to come back to the mall a couple times. So yeah, we're going to head to the Pits of Despair next. And so here is the intended method if your computer doesn't let you jump onto there. You're supposed to get your rock prepared, and you're supposed to throw it here. And that hits the lever. Now, I obviously hit the base of the lever, but we're not going to question that too much. We're going to enter the Pits of Despair. I don't really need the rocks.
I noticed.
Yeah.
I noticed that as that platform was scrolling, the texture didn't scroll with it, which is kind of interesting.
I've also realized I've been walking everywhere so far. I haven't even been holding the run key down. I could be going like way fast. Look how fast I could get moving.
There's a run key. You didn't even tell me.
Yeah, well, I'm running now, but it's hard to see that I'm running. But because this game, the engine's derived from Doom, strafe running is faster. Because if I run diagonally, it adds the velocity for forward and sideways momentum. So that's really fast.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We're zooming.
So yeah, that's how you get across gaps the game doesn't want you to get across. Oh, looked like he tried to fire a fireball and nothing came out.
I don't really as specifically remember this. I think this environment in my memory just kind of bleeds in with the Cave of Loneliness.
Yeah.
Because they're pretty similar.
Yep. This. Oh, I did it. I fell. That was dumb. All right. Oh, it drops you back
Nice.
into the level. Cool. Yeah, I think there's something interesting about how this level, how that whole Amphitheater of Apathy with its 5 areas really alternates between highs and lows. Like the Caves of Loneliness and Pits of Despair are meant to be extreme lows, whereas the Mall of Distractions is kind of the high. So yeah, I think that they're saying something kind of interesting with that.
That's the question I have is, what's the tie-in between the things we've seen so far in Apathy, right? So you've got loneliness, you've got despair, you've got distractions. I can sort of see how, like, worldly distractions would be something that would cause you to be complacent or apathetic towards important things in the world, right? But is the idea, like, is the idea that despair, for example, could cause you to disengage and not care about, the world around you, or not care about important thing.
I wonder, like, I think, like, my thing I would have a whole argument for at some other time is that the developers have actually hit on something else. Like, Apathy is a subset of what they're actually arguing against, but whether the developers know that they've started arguing against this thing or not, I don't know. It's possible they knew ahead of time what they're talking about, or it's possible they accidentally are making commentary on it. But I think what they're really aiming for is a critique of nihilism, and in particular a type of nihilism that's basically boils down to life is meaningless, so eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we'll die. You know what I mean? Hey, blue key. So
Interesting.
Yeah, because so far we haven't seen much of that, but like the Mall of Distractions really seems to be talking about like materialism, not as a philosophy that says, the only thing that exists is matter, but as a lifestyle of trying to consume, get as much material goods as possible, consume. Which way do I want to go first? I'm going to go this way first. And that consumption, or that consumerism, obviously doesn't do anything because it's all just material goods that are going to fade away anyway, and so you're left with nothing, and so you'll be alternating between the highs of consumerist, panic buying, and the lows of just this emptiness, which is telling us now don't jump. There is a sound effect that should play in here, but for some reason it's tied to the music, and once again, I'll say, if you want to know, look it up, because it is unintentionally funny. Because this room's kind of creepy. It's this big open thing that says "Don't jump." It's like very clearly like you're going to jump to your death. You're in such despair. You're going to commit suicide. But they have these screaming noises that are supposed to sound like people jumping to their death, and it is unintentionally funny. Makes this the funniest room in the game.
I don't remember that, actually. You'd
Yeah.
think that would be something I would remember, but I don't. I also feel like the game is very much telling us we're supposed to jump.
Yeah, we are. We're supposed to jump down here.
Which is a little bit of a mixed message if you think about it.
Yeah, don't jump. Well, do jump, but there's a platform down that'll help you, because we're gonna grab this. So we've grabbed 2 scrolls in here. The first one I grabbed is actually not necessary to beat the level, but this one is necessary later, so we do need it.
I guess the idea was they wanted to have a bunch of different ones so that when you actually had to fill in the scripture, you had to think about it a little bit.
You have to think about it, and you didn't know which one you're supposed to aim for. See, like, this hall is so narrow, you cannot dodge those shots. Because even if he fires at the far end and I'm standing here, it's going to hit you. It's just annoying as heck.
At least so far. I mean, I know we're on easy mode, but it's not as if we had a shortage of power-ups to replenish.
There's so many power-ups, even on the hardest mode, that, like, there was a point I was playing on the hardest mode where I was close to death, but the only reason it was difficult was because I just kept pressing on instead of going back to get all the power-ups I still hadn't picked up. But then again, I'm playing with the Saints X patch, so I could be like ducking and dodging like this. So there is a way to dodge. If you didn't have that, this would be much harder. But it just gets tedious because the enemy is like right now they take 4 or 5 hits maybe, but on the harder modes they could take like 8. And with the fire rate of the sword, it takes like 8 minutes just to kill an enemy. So we're gonna go. Oh.
Okay. Love turning the corner to see that.
Yeah, I know, right? I remember as a kid this was so frightening, and now it's not quite so frightening anymore.
I love that massive left chin that Vanity has. Apparently, that's the emblematic attribute of being vain is having a massive chin.
I mean, this is probably a good question for discussion with the high school group, I guess. But like, when we're talking about vanity here, could it mean perhaps? What could it mean? Does it mean vanity like we tend to think of it in modern culture of pride, or is there another meaning to vanity?
Well, I think vanity, like, I think of that. What is it? Is it am I getting confused here, or is it actually Ecclesiastes that talks about everything being vanity?
Yeah, that is Ecclesiastes.
Yeah, I think the whole concept there is like vanity is just this idea that, I mean, that book in particular is like very, very bleak in some respects. I think the author is like reckoning with the fact that, I guess in your darkest times, everything feels meaningless, right?
Yeah.
So the idea there is that, all of your efforts are vanity to believe that you could have an impact on the world, that you could be, or that you're significant, or that your acts or your hopes and your dreams mean anything.
Yeah.
We're nothing more than a highly evolved animal.
All right, get ready for one of the greatest arguments you've ever seen.
The Lord God formed the man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being.
Atheists destroyed.
Yeah, it says it right there. So
yeah, I have lots of thoughts about the whole system of using this, which we might get to either in this chapter or in another level of the game when there's some downtime, about even just the mechanic of doing this kind of puts the developers on the back foot in a lot of ways. And how
what do you mean? Like just because like they're going out of their way to find an argument that they then have to refute.
Yeah, exactly. Having to do it because it has to be like quippy sort of things. The problem with making quippy arguments is that they always serve the worst argument. Short, quippy, and wrong is always the way it goes. Like a single Bible verse is really, really hard to win an argument with, but it's especially really hard to win that kind of argument with.
Yeah. Well, like that example in particular, right? Like that's not something where you're gonna have someone come up to you and tell you, tell you basically that humankind doesn't matter. There's no meaning behind our existence or whatever, right? But that might be a verse that you would repeat to yourself to remind yourself of like a spiritual truth. But it's not an argument winner. It's a
why am I?
Yeah.
Did I get the bug? I got the bug. I did it.
Oh,
this game occasionally has a bug where collision stops. It's back. It's back. Okay, we're good. So as soon as I walked in, the character pointed out the stage looks different. Again, if you can tell what is different about the stage, great. But if you can't, it is okay. We will find out later. So we can't go anywhere else yet except the mall. So we do have to backtrack there. But yeah, you were saying, actually, I think one of the things that the only way this sort of works logically is the idea that it's not an argument meant to convince somebody who isn't a Christian. The idea is that the player you're playing as is already a Christian, and these would be verses that he would say to remind himself of these truths. But at the same time, it's still pretty weak.
I mean, I think the idea, right? So I think they're playing off of the idea of the armor of God, right? The shield of faith and all of this, and you're equipping yourself with these verses to fight off attacks of the enemy, so to speak, right? So I think that's kind of more the idea. Okay, what's going on here?
Grab a mirror. That's the point it's going for. Although, okay, now how to get back out? The idea to me, like, in order to make this work, because like real life worldly wisdom arguments are notoriously difficult to just one and done argue against them with like a single Bible verse. So if that's what we're going to try to do, then the only way to do it is that the developers kind of have to go out of their way to craft a worldly wisdom argument, which is already defeated by the Bible verse. So, like in real life, if you are a Christian who's being faced with temptation, you're going to have much, much more difficult arguments that you would have to fight against, and single Bible verses will be pretty useless against them. So, in order to make this mechanic work, the developers kind of have to, tie the devil's hands, so to speak, to make the fight fair. Okay, the way to open these
Yeah.
lasers is the mirror. Does that make sense? Kind of. Anyway, as you were saying. Yeah.
I don't understand why that worked, but what I
Yeah.
was going to say is, I mean, this is obviously very simplified, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't think it's indicative of like a shallow understanding of their own faith on the part of the developers. I think it's just you're making a video game, packing the entirety of what it means to live in the 20th century, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, into one little game. But anyways, let's talk about what we're looking at now. So,
Yeah.
what is this, an art gallery?
Yeah. This level is possibly the most confused level in the game. We'll see. We'll see that in a second.
Yeah. Now, this I actually don't remember at all.
Yeah. But yeah, Gallery of Nothingness. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'll just let you sort of form your own conclusion about what we're trying to do with this level. But I kind of put it with the mall as far as being one of the highs. Like we go from the highs to the lows. But this is such like 90s vaporware aesthetic.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if you turn the corner and see the little, bust
Yeah.
in neon lighting. I guess the thing for me, right?
Yeah.
There's a couple of things just looking at this immediately that spring to mind. There's two kind of different things. One of them is, I think the idea is we're talking about a gallery, which is basically something you choose to display accomplishments or important things in. I
Yeah.
think the idea is they're saying, first of all, hamburgers, most important thing. Probably a critique of Warhol somehow.
This room is
but-
such a Warhol.
Oh yeah, okay. I didn't see the soup cans.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to see I was right on the money there. But I like that chair. Nice. But the idea is they're saying, I think it kind of ties into the idea of vanity being one of the enemies. And actually, that's an interesting point.
Mhm.
That the enemies in this world kind of tie into the levels, right? So like
Yeah.
worldliness is tying into, and vanity is tying into these things. So the idea is this level, I think, is supposed to represent like a complex art. Us as humans setting up this like gallery of our own accomplishments, but in the end, they're actually meaningless.
Mhm.
First of all, this
Yeah.
is amazing. This is like a
Also-
combination of like Hieronymus Bosch and some kind of like Salvador Dali.
This painting is actually Mike Ulrich, one of the two developers. He painted this when he was in college, and so he stuck it in
That's
the game.
amazing.
Yeah. So that's
Um,
this painting is perhaps one of the biggest pieces of evidence I would use if someone wants to say this level is about how modern art is bad. It'd be like, nope. Although it kind of looks like that would be the argument here, but I don't think that's what they're specifically arguing for. Although I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't have a very high view of like the early 20th century artists.
Yeah. Well, that was actually going to be the second thing I was going to bring
Yeah.
up, which is, and this might be me reaching back into my recollection of growing up in the particular type of environment we grew up in. Not to like dive too deep into the past, but in a more conservative kind of Christian environment, it was pretty common to look at modern art and as an
Yeah.
example of everything wrong with like postmodernism and
Yeah.
how there's no meaning behind it. And I don't know if the authors are trying to make that critique here, but I'm
Yeah.
taken back to the times of hearing that critique made.
I think that they are trying to take advantage of that pre-existing belief without necessarily making the case for it. It's just unfortunate because it so happens to coincide with some really like Nazi conspiracy theories, which is just it's
See,
unfortunate.
I wasn't even going to go there. I was going to say anti-intellectualism just
Yeah,
generally. but-
anti-intellectualism. But yeah, it's unfortunate because it's the type of thing. It's the anti-intellectualism specifically with the modern art movements has its roots in the cultural Bolshevism / cultural Marxism. But at the same time, like it should be acknowledged that a person who dislikes the modern, at this point, 100 years old, a person who dislikes that kind of art is not inherently anti-Semitic. However,
Well, that's good to hear.
it happens to be that people who are like anti-Semites in this way will despise this kind of art. So it's just something to be really careful of. But I don't think the developers of the game are that, because we'll see like any possible critique of the modern art world kind of begins and ends at this.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it kind of ties into the way that, like, for example, not to go on a tangent, but how classical music theory can be tied to a lot of anti-Semitic rhetoric, but that doesn't mean that the music theory itself is such a thing. It's just that people have leveraged it to try to make arguments about cultural superiority and whatnot.
Yep. It's the type of thing that's like, the developers, it's just two guys making the thing, and who knows how aware they were of all this kind of stuff. It's just the sort of like, hey, just so if you do your research on a thing, you can be very careful how you portray something, because you might accidentally make a point you don't want to make. But we'll see in the last wing of this gallery that they're actually trying to make a different point. So this is all just fun and games. So this is the second secret I found in the gallery. The first one was behind that other painting. Oops, wrong button. But the game so far seems to think we've only found two. So these are the two secrets that the game doesn't register.
Well, it is the Gallery of Nothingness, so there's no secrets here either.
This, finally, rapid fire. This will make the battles go easier much quicker. I'm not saving. You know what? I will. Just in case a bug happens, we're going to save it. So what I think is happening, and I think you're hitting the nail on the head here, you're starting to get toward it, is that we're using sort of the concept of the modern abstract non-representational art as an analogy for a different argument, right? So we want to make a different argument. You were talking about sort of meaninglessness and that kind of thing. We want to use the modern art as an analogy of that meaningless rather than a critique against the art itself. Also, amazing statue.
That is a heck of a schnoz right there.
What's really great about the statue is that it follows you around the room because it's a 2D sprite.
I love that.
It's so creepy. Yeah, so when we go up these stairs, we're going to see it looking at us when we come out the other end.
Which I imagine is a great effect. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it would be, even if it was like looking right at you on your level, that would have been pretty like, oh my gosh.
That would have creeped me out. So I mean, it already is kind of creepy. Okay, now but these guys are going to go down much quicker now, although I still can't dodge their shots. See, I just got hit by that guy. The bullet went wide left. I still got hit. So yeah, that's why I don't really try to dodge that much. With the worldliness enemies, they're just too fast.
I was talking about the we were going to come across a bus and it was going to be extremely vaporware. This is the room for that.
This is the room for that. This is
you
where
you can screenshot this and put it on an album, I think.
Yeah, I think that we will get a better idea of what the gallery is about from these four statues. And to me, this is why I think this level is a bit confused in what it's trying to argue. Because let's start with this first one. Ancient Roman Empire, which lived for pleasure first. Now, I don't know everything about the Ancient Roman Empire, but that is not how I would describe the Ancient Roman Empire.
I'm not really a history buff. I think the main thing, if I was to distill my education on Rome into the tiniest nugget, it would really be the bread and circuses mentality that caused them to fall, right?
Yeah. But
so maybe
even that's like a misremembered idea of how the empire worked. Like it's an empire. It wasn't a hedonistic pleasure center. So it's like there's he's turning. He's changing
is that supposed to happen?
I don't know. That's cool. Yeah, this is Charles Darwin. Evolution bad. Okay. This is Nietzsche, everyone's favorite quote. God is dead, which obviously he only said God is dead and he ended the quote there. He didn't talk about anything else. And when he meant God is dead, he didn't mean anything else aside from that, obviously.
It's funny, I don't even know the rest of the quote. I just know that one part.
I don't remember the whole quote. I have to look it up later, but I know it starts with God is dead, for we have killed him. Who will wash this blood off her hands, sort of stuff. It's not really talking about how atheism is true as much as I think the quote ultimately is sort of saying the kind of thing like humanity has moved beyond the need for like the gods that we believed in, but people still kind of need to have gods in some fashion, so humans will sort of take up the place of God instead of believing in God.
It's like a lamentation at the loss of something.
Yeah. And this, I don't know what the heck this guy's doing here.
I was going to say, I have no idea who that is.
Yeah. I think
quite the portrait, though.
Yeah, I don't know if that has any. It's like, yeah,
just somebody that the authors had to read in their lit class, and they really
they're
hated
just
it.
Like, hate this guy. Screw him.
He's going in our game.
All right, now my favorite worldly wisdom door, best argument of all time.
God is dead.
No, he's not.
The creation of the world.
Uno
God's
reverse
invisible
card.
qualities, His eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that men are without excuse.
Atheist destroyed.
Another
Soul
one
game.
of those.
Wait, hold on a
Sweet.
second. Hold on a second.
One after
Yeah,
another.
check that out. Watch, as soon as I enter the door, it starts moving.
What have we done?
Another one
Okay.
of those.
There we go.
Another one of
I
those.
do like this effect. It's supposed to be like, we're in the midst of just this creepy void, but because I can easily move my mouse, I can do this, and you can see that
Oh, nice.
it's just a strip, and then the game doesn't know what to do with that, and also there's
It's
nothing...
interesting because clearly they didn't really intend for you to look up and down very much in the game, but they
Yeah.
did give you the option of doing it. So
Yeah, you have the power. The power is yours.
yeah, I
It's
guess
just
I just
really
didn't
funny.
think you would actually use page up and page down to move up and
Yeah.
down. So
Anyway, bye,
um,
Nietzsche. You said God is
He's
dead? Well, God's alive. Owned.
looking the other way. Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, it just
Yeah.
kind of feels like I think they were trying to make an argument. Like, I don't think they were trying to make an argument so much about modern art as much as using sort of the replacement of God with nothing.
Yeah.
The analogy is we replace representational art with this art that signifies nothing. But it's kind of weak. Honestly, it's just kind of a weak argument.
This is worth touching on. So I don't know that this is the intention of the
Yeah.
creators, right? But it's sort of parallel to what I would consider, and I mentioned like anti-intellectualism
Yeah.
in kind of modern Christian thought, right? Is this there's just real like not discomfort, but like this idea, right? That everything modern is trying to rely on our worldly understanding and our own human intellect, and the idea is that leads us astray because we don't have the
Yeah.
full knowledge of what obviously God has all knowledge. He's omnipotent, omniscient, and so the idea is, by contrast, we're foolish to rely on our own ability to
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
derive truth.
pause your thought there. This door that was closed at the very beginning of the episode here, I've actually looked it up. This door only opens after you press 3 buttons. And the only 3
Interesting.
buttons that are possible to press are the ones you've pressed. So it kind of turns this open world into a linear one. You do have to do exactly what we've done to get in here. Also, the character commented, the stage is higher now. So the stage is raising up with every button you press.
Interesting, yeah.
And now here's another one. I'm curious to what you will think about this level as well. I'm going to start by going this way. It's essentially 2 separate mazes. There's an audio maze and a film maze. I think this direction is the audio one. Yeah. But you're not going to hear any music. It's not put in very well anyway, so you can look it up on your own time. Oh.
Yeah.
Who's
It's
it?
interesting how both this and the prior area both seem to have something to avoid in my memory, and I have no recollection of either of them.
Yeah. It could also be because, like, when we first played the game, it was the Caves of Loneliness and the Mall of Distractions that really locked in, because we were stuck for so long that those are the places we really saw.
Yeah.
And then once we got past that, we basically breezed through the rest of the game, so it's really easy to not remember everything else. This room's...
Well, this is delightfully trippy. I love the
I would love to
love how
get
they're
some
kind
music
of
to put
not-
in this.
I love how they're kind of not really moving quite in sync either, so it's extra jittery.
That secret counted, by the way. That was your 3rd secret.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not quite in. There would be, if we had the music playing, like an 8-second loop of new age music. Is this the way it came in? I don't remember. Yeah, that's the way it came in. And so if you hear music now, I've put other music in here just to make this room really trippy. Also, I think, are those, like, at first I thought those were supposed to be like automatic sprinklers, but I think they're supposed to be light things. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay. We gotta head this way and see some. There. Yeah, that rapid fire thing means I can just tank this stuff. It's not a big deal. This way, I think. Oh, this is just a fun little party room.
When I got on the dance floor,
Yeah.
bust a couple
Dance floor,
moves.
bust a couple moves. Ba, 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 da, 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 da. Yeah.
Very nice, very nice. Give the people what they want.
I know, right? Shake that booty. Biblically, shake that booty. All right, we have some fun.
Oh, what are we looking at here?
Yeah, some self-playing music here. Other side. Yeah, rusty key. So you might think, oh, this goes to the mall because the other two keys do, but you would be wrong. You would be wrong and bad and a sinner for believing that. It's actually going to be used in this level.
Nice.
Yeah.
Gonna gloss over that.
Yeah, we're just gonna go right past that. Is this here or is this another one of those party rooms? Party room. Now this is an underground rave.
Famous brick wall underground raves.
I mean, this is basically every like club in Seattle. So.
Not that I spend a lot of time at clubs in Seattle.
Yeah.
Not these
it's not
days.
as full as a club in Seattle too. Oh.
God.
Alright.
You're just going to the wrong clubs.
Yeah. I don't really go out there. It's just I occasionally have been to these places like we're gonna do our little show in the basement of this club and it looks exactly like this room. Yeah, grab some more ammo.
The blue marble and everything.
Yeah. So we're gonna use a rusty key on this door here. We're gonna use a rusty key on there we go. Okay, thank you.
Rusty looking door.
Yeah. And this room where you'd think this room, the original music would have the bass pumping really, really hot, and actually it isn't. So what if you heard something pumping there, I added it in post. Cool. This way? No, but it's smile forever, red hurts deep, help while want to. Nobody understands. What? So that was having a stroke for a second there. Why can't you? Peace lives on. Cool.
Generally, I feel like you could sit in there and look at those and try to analyze what they're trying to say there. I have no idea.
Yeah, it's another one where, like, a level where they have a point to make, but it kind of feels like it gets confused on this level.
Whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I think like one of the issues that's really going to come into play, it's going to be more in level 3 than in this level, but an issue that comes when not just Christians, but all sorts of stripes I've seen do this, where you want to make an argument against an opposing belief, but you don't really know the opposing belief very well. And rather than see it as an opportunity to expand your knowledge of your opponent's beliefs, you decide that your ignorance is good enough. So it's like the developers are trying to argue against certain things, but they don't know what they're arguing against sometimes, and they don't really seem to care to learn what they're arguing against. Also, hello.
What in the world am I looking at right now?
Yeah, I have thoughts about using the image of the somewhat recently deceased Kurt Cobain in your level about why media is bad. But okay. I don't think it was intentionally meant that way, but it's still very much like, why would you do that? Like, it kind of feels a little mean-spirited.
Kind of weird.
Yeah.
This came out, what, in 1999?
1999.
Like
it started work in late 97, I think. So he'd been dead only a few years. And it's like...
I was going to say, I actually have no concept of when Cobain actually passed away. But
so it just feels a little tacky. Like, what? Huh?
I mean, as a kid, there's no way we knew that was Cobain.
Yeah, we didn't know what that was as a kid.
Some random guy.
But yeah, and the only reason I have this reaction is because there's a part in a little bit we're going to see which actually does a similar, like, uses real people, and it feels very tacky. And so it just kind of comes across like, why would you use real people? Why wouldn't you just make up images? All right.
So I'm actually kind of curious. I have no idea the legality of it, but like, are those public domain images? Like, are you allowed to use someone's likeness in your game? I actually have no idea.
I'm not entirely sure how that works because on the one hand, like, it's not like a photo of a person. Well, a photo of a person is copyrighted. Not like the person in the photo is copyrighted. It's the photo itself that's copyrighted. But there is like questionable morality of using a real life person in the game. So like this right here. By the way, I'm going to put the seizure warning at the beginning of the video, but here's where it is. So those are distorted images of real celebrities. I don't recognize them all immediately, but I think this one might be someone I know. Is distorted enough that I couldn't quite tell. But it's like, I don't know if you should be doing that. I don't know if you should be doing that in your game about why the media is bad and then use a real Hollywood celebrity.
Well, it makes me wonder, like,
yeah.
Is there a degree to where if somebody's like a big enough cultural icon that they're sort of like you can make the argument, it's like, well, they're instantly recognized.
Yeah, Yeah, so it's not so much like you can't use the image as much as what you're using it for feels kind of mean. Because the whole point of this level
Yeah.
is to talk about why it's bad. It's just an image of a celebrity. Also, by the way, you need to look up at the ceiling at this point, and you need to see this number 91. It's not 16.
Oh.
It is 91 because you can't really see it from here anyway. So yeah, in a game where looking up was harder to do, you had to use a special key. We wandered around for a billion years looking for the answer to the puzzle that's about to come up. It's on the ceiling.
I really don't remember it at all, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a something to be said for I guess it's like the easiest, quickest way to make the point they wanted to make. The easiest, quickest way isn't always the best way, right?
Also, some of these posters are recognizable. I think this is a Rambo poster.
I was gonna say it looks like Stallone to me.
Yeah, I don't immediately recognize. Is this Dawn of the Dead or something?
I couldn't tell you. I should
Clockwork Orange. This looks like Clockwork Orange. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's blurred. But again, like even if it's blurred, like if this game had actually taken off, they could have gotten hit with some lawsuits if they weren't careful.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not so much because you're not allowed to use those posters. Wow, you're stealing. It's more like those companies are notorious for going after people for the slightest infraction. So like, don't mess around.
Yeah.
Um.
Well, like I said, only the two of us had I ever heard of this game, so clearly they hadn't heard of it either.
Yeah, it's just kind of risky to use real life media stuff in this.
Yeah, but again, I kind of feel like I think I might have mentioned this a little bit. Like this was sort of like, at least maybe I'm over exaggerating it because I was a kid at this time, so to me everything was still new. But I sort of describe it as the Wild West of like 3D computer games.
Oh yeah,
there was really a precedent, right? Like people were just kind of doing stuff.
Yeah. I mean, like honestly, I don't hate the game. I'm not gonna say like, wow, terrible developers, wah. It's just like I don't know if I would have made that decision. I don't really need to pray for strength, but I'm gonna just fill up because it stops at 100 there. So there's altars hidden throughout the game. There's a few. I think you can only use each one once, and you can pray for strength, which gives you 50 shield and 50 health, up to 100 max. You can pray for wisdom, which gives you a hint on what to do next. The hint is terrible. Don't waste your prayer. You can also pray and thank God, which does nothing, just like real life. But Tish.
Okay. Got him.
Or you can pray just to pray, which also does nothing.
Just giving the audience a little something to
I know, right?
Nod.
I know, right? Gonna do some cynical religious humor there.
Yeah. You must have gotten lost in the cave of despair for too long.
That's how you can tell the game is fake, because you pray to God and He answers you.
Got him.
Got him. Religion's destroyed. All right.
Yeah. Well, now I can't share this video with a number of my friends.
I know, right?
Oh my word. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's all this room is. It's just that.
Not sure how I feel about having a picture of Oprah Winfrey on the wall and having monkey noises.
I know, right? Having screeching, gibbering noises with real people. That's Oprah Winfrey, Jerry Springer, and Geraldo Rivera, and the fourth person I don't recognize. But it's like, they didn't deserve that. Like, they didn't deserve to be compared to circus animal noises, because there was also noise of pigs oinking. There was other,
Well, I guess the thing I would say, right, so this very much, again, feeds into some of the mentality that I recall growing up with, 48, of, like, looking at famous people, celebrities, and media, not just as something that ultimately is maybe a little bit over-glamorized, but as being actually, like, indicative of deeply wrong things in our culture, right?
Yeah, that the celebrities are out to get you, sort of stuff.
I guess the idea was that because it's all it's all vanity, it's all fake, or it's all overblown, then nothing's off limits as far as what we can say about these people.
Yeah,
it's not that I'm like saying won't anybody think of the rich famous people, but it's like there's a degree to which you really want to engage in that kind of worldview.
It's the sort of thing like they're just people. They are not the cause of the problem here. Whatever problem they're trying to talk about.
Good, do it.
Whatever feels good, do it. I don't. The other part, like here, this is getting really nitpicky because normally, like when I was growing up, when I heard this argument being presented, and it was always being presented as the bad argument we're about to destroy, it was always presented as if it feels good, do it. So it's like, I don't know why they changed it. Like, why didn't they just say the one we were all familiar with? Whatever. So
Maybe regionally, maybe it's what maybe
yeah,
it was a little
you would
different for
think
them,
that
and they.
store it for yourselves treasures in heaven would be the verse, but it's actually this verse.
Do not love the world or anything in the world. If anyone loves the world, love of the Father is not in him.
So
Yeah.
that I feel like that was a missed. There's so much better verses you can use for that.
Yeah.
That was a waste.
That's an interesting one too, because I feel like, especially out of context, just kind of by itself, I feel like that verse can be taken as a microcosm of a worldview that really we were talking about worldliness earlier and
Yeah.
what that means, and why that's something you set up to knock down, right, for the sake of a spiritual,
Yeah.
win, right? This idea that the world is irredeemable, which I think really goes against what the
Yeah.
actual point of the gospel is, which is that the world can be redeemed, but not by us, right? So it's interesting. I feel like it was really evangelical, conservative kind of church in America in particular is really prone to leaning really heavily into condemning the world and not being the redemption of the world, which is kind of sad.
Yeah, there's a video essay I watched by the YouTuber Decaying Reverie, which I think is. Oh, by the way, now we see what's happening to the buttons. There's a spot under the stage. We just got to go to the mall and do the last scroll. So the Decaying Reverie YouTuber made a very thoughtful video essay. I'm going to say is like the gold standard for discussion of this game. He goes through like from the start to the finish of the game and discusses, how successful is the message and things like that. And he actually offers alternate verses for that door, which are much better choices. And it basically comes down to the one that ends, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added to you," which I think is a much better verse you could use to counter the hedonistic, do whatever feels good in the moment type of belief. So it's weird that the developers missed that.
First of all, I am kind of offended you wouldn't refer to us as the gold standard of discussion about this game, but I'll take the silver medal.
Yeah, now we have the scroll.
Store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also.
I think what they're saying here too, right? Because the idea of the contrast between storing up treasures in the world versus treasures in heaven, right? Yeah. So that's why that verse is used for this one and not for the other one.
Yep. Yeah, and also like the notion of like we're going to store up treasures for in heaven versus the other door which turned into do not love the world. If you love the world, the love of the Father's not in you. Is like the difference being that the Bible verse that we just used is portraying a more positive message about, hey, remember the good things that you have in store. Don't be tempted by the world. Whereas the other one was, hey, they're talking about doing stuff that feels good. Don't do stuff that feels good. That makes you a bad person, which is a more negative message. And negative messages are kind of really hard to justify sometimes.
Yeah. Well, again, it's like oversimplified, right?
Yeah.
Not to distract from what we're seeing here.
Yeah. Wrong button. That's right. Crouch is on C. That's right. It's in a weird spot. Control is to fire for some reason. Okay. Cool. So we get under the stage. This is going to end the level. So any of those final thoughts you have here?
I was going to say it's a simplified way of looking at the world. There's more to the statement of don't love the world than just world bad, or there's more to don't just do things because they feel good than feel good bad. The idea is just consider the cost, consider the ramifications of what you're doing, not just that it makes you feel good, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I guess we can go through this door.
Yep. And then it ends the level. There's normally some like dad rock playing here, but not anymore. We skipped Apathy. So yeah.
Actually, yeah.
Cool.
That was like that. Just seeing that little cutscene gave me sort of like a deja vu flashback.
We did find all 6. I don't know where the last 2 enemies are. I literally went to every single room in the game, so I don't know where they probably clipped out of bounds. So yeah,
they're in the actual secret areas.
So that's the Amphitheater of Apathy. We'll have thoughts about that later, I guess. I don't want to spend an hour doing an essay about it right now. So it's going to load the next level, and then I'll save the game. And we'll talk about what this level is, the Labyrinths of Legalism, in the next video there. Thanks for joining me today, Empfindsamer. And we'll get to level 2 the next time we chat. Awesome.
Looking forward to it.
Excellent. All right, I'll actually save the game now. And once again, to both of my fans, I love you both. Goodbye.